Welcome to the Cinematography.
This is a celebration of the craft of pure imagination, the art of animation as a symphony of fantasy and movement. Animation is the magical technique in which figures are manipulated, creating the illusion of movement. For before cinematography broke through in 1895, entire audiences were already enchanted by the magic lantern. For in so many ways, animation is cinema's quiet grandfather, one that held hands tight with the traditional and experimental forms of storytelling. For as cinema toys with reality, animation manufactures it from scratch. Every little gesture, every little emotion. This is a celebration of animation's many techniques and voices, the enchantments of observation, gestures and motion, so dear to us as children. The celebration of the tiniest details of life that help build the craftsmanship of animation, where poetic sensibility is in full bloom through master auteurs of this ever-changing and ever-inspiring art. This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinemacartography. That's mubi.com/cinemacartography for a whole month of great cinema for free. Animator Yuri Norstein's work is grandiose in cinematic achievement. With a passionate interest in transforming animation into a serious dramatic art, Norstein's Tale of Tales constructs in miniature a curious and utterly individual image of the world. Here, beauty and tragedy coexist in the most harmonious ways. Beyond influence, style, brushwork and fluidity, the beauty of Tale of Tales comes from a place outside rational explanation. Norstein creates deeply contemplative films that articulate its message from a place between traditional beauty of composition, texture and pacing, and the immateriality of its narrative. The power here is in Norstein's deep-seated subversion of the technique of cutout animation, a technique often associated with aesthetic crudeness of fast-pacing environments frequently used for comic effect. Yuri Norstein's choice in transgressing the medium is one profoundly motivated by atmosphere. He would often juxtapose his paper cutouts to stack layers of glass underneath the camera, sometimes painting his characters and backgrounds directly onto celluloid or glass. The result is a form of transparency and mobility with the planes of glass that could generate different effects, allowing for the unique perspective that often mimicked camera movement present in his film. Here in Hedgehog in the Fog, this creates a tangible experience to the audience, where the world of imagination seems to permeate the everyday life. Creatures wander through the forest, interacting with the many textures of nature. The film feels like a proverb. Behind the simple storylines lies a true magical and metaphorical universe waiting to be unveiled, shaping a unique poetic folklore. Animation is not bounded by reality. It exists through pure imagination, creating a universe unique to the medium and facilitating a marriage between meaning and form that not always comes easily to live-action cinema. The animations of Yamamura Koji explores exactly this limit. His masterpiece adaptation of Franz Kafka's A Country Doctor is his most ambitious and influential project, Here, Yamamura creates his own poetic reality, juxtaposing a Kafka-esque perspective but staying true to his craft. Form and movement produce a unique dance of meaning, going far beyond his erratic line style to permeate every aspect of the visual storytelling. Yamamura does this by connecting the story to the method and style itself, pushing 2D animation to its limits, exploring extreme shifts in perspective. He does this in his Oscar-nominated Atama Yama too. This allows for the story to be in the far border of surrealism. Characters experience a transformation in their form and shape as we see them impacted by their internal world. The world around them changes as they change inside. Animation allows Yamamura to manipulate all aspects of the visual storytelling, and his domain of optical distortion is exceptional. He's able to strengthen reality to its finest limits, creating a tangible experience to otherwise metaphysical events. Feelings have new form. Metaphors are visual allegories. We see visual representations of what the character experiences, and as we get closer and closer to understanding him, we're surprised by the absurdity of it all. Yamamura's style is one inundated by weirdness and strangeness, but one of the highest poetic splendour nonetheless. Poetry in animation lies in its details, from the compositional choice, to the line weight, to the structure of a scene. The Red Turtle by Michael Dudok de Witt shows incredible control, a meditative tale that utilises both silence and minimalistic visual composition to tell an extremely layered story of a man shipwrecked on a desert island. Profound and moving, the film utilises absence as one of its biggest strengths. Characters are often centred on screen. Backgrounds are often blocks of colours. Detailed scenes create space for our eyes to travel through the action as it unfolds. There's an abundance of design choices here. For design in animation is intelligence made visible. Every element at play in each shot serves a purpose on the storytelling, resulting in a visual masterpiece of sublime poetic sensibility. Akin to its sensibility but unique in its form is the tale of Princess Kaguya, an animation that deals with the themes within Japanese folklore from a perspective of animation. Here, the animation takes the form of fluid brushstrokes. The movements are almost circular as they effortlessly present themselves. The image is never consistent, as the animators favour a style that allows for the line quality to change with the emotions imprinted on the scene. When the characters express intense emotion, the movement and lines reflect that. When life is joyous, the film takes an almost storybook approach to the composition. This technique allows for the film to create a strong sense of tactility, flowing freely between the screen and the audience's imagination.
I forget.
Song of the Sea by Tomm also deals with folklore, this time Irish. Here there's also a textural approach to the images. The animation never tries to hide its artifice, but uses it in its favour to tell a story completely absorbed by fantasy. Lines are unnatural colours. They obey solely the graphic world of the animation. The colour scheme is well thought and used to guide our eyes through the motion. Lines and textures are never hidden, but incorporated into the film's rich aesthetic. But to talk about aesthetic sensibility in animation is to talk about Miyazaki's tour de force, The Wind Rises. A film both well thought in its structure and visual composition. Scenes in The Wind Rises feel fluid. They exude the visual splendour and control of a master with a message. Here, Miyazaki uses aviation as the main storytelling device that spills in the many visual tropes of the film. We often see things from an elevated viewpoint, bringing a new perspective to familiar forms of landscapes, characters, and objects. The landscapes feel organic, as movement takes the forefront, and the drawing style always feels polished. It's above all a film about dreams.
Jiro, oi. Meshida, ikoze.
Done with the sensibility of a dreamer that understands the power of an individual creative genius in the face of global change. Akin to this sensibility is legendary animation director Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, a film where storytelling is also deeply rooted in its technique. Here, Kon plays with the idea of reality and how we can be active agents in manipulating reality through media. He does this as he also manipulates our reality through the animation itself. The power of animation lies exactly in its endless possibilities, to create an image from scratch, not restricted by any demanding rule of reality. Animation operates in the realms of fantasy, even when dialoguing with intense topics, but it does so by breaking our resistance barriers and reaching deep inside our inner child, through our subconscious mind.
Souls die.
In The Iron Giant, we witness the deepest sacrifice of a friend, and it works like most good animations. It makes us forget that we're watching moving drawings, for the characters and story are so compelling to us. Much like Fantastic Planet, it works as an allegory of nonconformity. It treats all our nightmares of political turmoil, fights for freedom and dystopian futures with a strangely uplifting undertone, never losing the mystique of the imagination provided by its animation techniques.
Oh, regardez, père, une femelle d'homme et son petit. Croyez-vous qu'elle soit morte?
For animation can be a great antidote to apathy. It allows to approach difficult subjects with intense lyricism. Grave of the Fireflies by Takahata Isao focuses its attention on the familial struggles that war can bring its victims. It's a personal tale about isolation and fraternity in the face of extreme deprivation. The story's realistic approach to tone and style allows us to look back at the historical events of World War II from a humanising perspective, focusing on small gestures and the real impacts of war. Its wide compositions and sombre colour palette direct us to see the characters as part of their environment, part of the history being written at every tiny moment. Characters come and go out of places. The spaces are filled with silence and ambient noise. They exist. There's space between every scene and attention to the details that elevate its timing and pacing, allowing for a contemplative approach that highlight moments of joy as much as moments of hardship, redeeming the story of Japanese people in the events of World War II. In a similar note is the anti-war animation When the Wind Blows.
Oh, yes. What a shame.
Still, it'll be lovely in the spring.
It is spring, dear.
And the bucolic Watership Down's Tale of Rabbits, threatened by the dangers of modern forces. Animation can constantly remind us that underneath the bright images and comical breaks, there's creative life operating as a transforming agent of perspective for critical thinking.
Your lips are all red.
My gums are bleeding. I thought there was a funny taste.
Animator Priit Parn understood that his film Teeb Trikke from 1978 follows only the logic of imagination. His playful, surrealist and unique graphic style is crude in both tone and humour. It doesn't want to be beautiful, but explore weirdness in colour, art and themes. Works of the likes of Salad Fingers by David Firth, rejected by Don Hertzfeldt. Our Monsters by Igor Kovalyov are indebted to Priit Parn's manifest of animation freedom. Jan Švankmayer's surrealist explorations in Dimensions of Dialogue from 1983 is another great example of animation re-signifying everyday objects into an amalgamation of new meanings and purposes to allow us to look at things from a new perspective. Here, stop motion borrows from the everyday: fruits, objects, trash, clay. All is raw material for Švankmajer to draw with movement, frame by frame, telling a story of human struggles of communication and understanding. Much of Švankmajer's work can be understood with a closer look into his connections to the Prague Surrealist group, which he was a member since 1963. This is even clearer in his masterpiece Alice from 1988, mixing live action and stop motion. His method is uncompromising, with extreme close-ups that often alienate the environment, smooth animation that contrast with the hyperbolic visuals. Švankmajer manages once more to bring heavy symbology and surrealism to the world of cinema through animation. This surrealist approach to storytelling is one that we can find from a number of schools of thought inside animation. From 1933's The Mascot to the criminally underrated The Diary of Tortov Roddel, surrealism seems to have married the medium of animation in the collective consciousness. The medium itself revolves around the building of imaginary worlds, and the reality warping potentials of animations might have been forgotten by mass production studios that adhere to a more conformist approach to the art, but it's exactly with this approach that contemporary gems are also made. Mononoke, The Night is Short, Walk on Girl, The Triplets of Belleville are animations produced with the tenacity of the avant-gardes that never cease to reiterate the inventiveness of the form. But sometimes playing with symbology can also lead to dark fantasy, symbols of the mind we tend to shy away from as they offer us a certain regard inside our shadow. Yukidoki by Oyama Kei tells a story of a boy fascinated by the grotesque. Here everything is white. The complete absence of colour is only matched by the eerie, unmelodious soundscape and the almost non-verbal script. Borrowing from the legacy of Valerian Borovichka's Renaissance and the brothers Quay's Street of Crocodiles and Paul Berry's The Sandman, contemporary animators try to reconcile animation with a more mature audience. Anomalisa by Charlie Kaufman, Ring of Fire by Andreas Hikade, The Girl from the Other Side by Kubo Yutaro. Those types of animations are seen as disturbing, described as unnerving or uncanny, but this type of label only serves to reassure the common perception that animation is something from the realm of childhood alone, something to be left behind once you reach adulthood. But why? The art of storytelling is fluid. A story may find its own way of manifesting itself through a comic, a play, a concept album, or an animation film. And to deliberately ostracize an art form is to limit your own experiences with art itself. Masterpieces Kreisar, The Pied Piper by Jiri Bata are bound to the techniques of animation itself. The fictional world of Kreisar is one fundamentally based on German expressionism and the medieval German art. The whole film was projected to appear mechanical, characters were made to look unreal and unnatural, the sets are distorted and dark, the language spoken on the film is fictional. It's all pure imagination in the service of cinema. Imagination is the essence of art, and it shouldn't be denied to adulthood. It teaches us to reconcile ourselves with the deeper truth, for what's tangible around us is raw material for imagination, and as we grow older, imagination may surrender to the intellect, emotion to knowledge, and we may see ourselves struggling to connect with art as creativity is no longer instinctive. The art of animation helps us reconnect to this fascination, to deeper feelings in the world of fantasy, helping us look at the world again, this time to find its infinite possibilities of experience, feeling, and inventiveness. One of the most impressive uses of the animated form we've ever seen is in the animated documentary Waltz with Bashir by Ari Folman, a film that takes on the hard task to animate the real experience of its interviewees. The animation methods combine Adobe Flash with traditional animation, a technique that's not to be confused with rotoscoping. Here, the film was entirely shot and then transferred to a storyboarding process where more than 2,000 illustrations were made to be combined later with 3D, Flash, and 2D animation. And although the technical expertise of the film is impressive, it's in the film's use of visual metaphors to reconcile the experiences of an infantry soldier post-Lebanon War that lies its true triumphs. The film utilizes dream sequences that allow us to navigate inside the character's psyche, playing with reality and fiction as we get deeper and deeper into his personal experiences of war that seem to intertwine to historical accounts of the massacre. The animation here is being used as a device to get us closer to the imagination of the main protagonist, allowing us to get a closer look at the tough mental realities of war and oppression. Kindred is the lyrical tale of post-revolutionary Iran in Persepolis by Marjani Satrapi. And the deeply absurdist but profoundly personal It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt, a film composed of 3 short films following Bill as we interact with his life within traditional animation, manipulated photography, and optical effects, all creating a unique sense of storytelling that gives the film an auteur's edge. Incorporating a stronger symbiosis with the traditional arts than mainstream cinema, animation has always been in the forefront of visual narrative. The graphic inventiveness of Kanashimi no Belladonna by Yamamoto Eiichi is one that requires no presentation. The film is heavily influenced by Klimt paintings, Harry Clarke illustrations, and the Taro, utilising strong pictorial motifs, crossing the borders of 2D animation to pure graphic design in the composition of its panel-like shots. Much like The Thief and the Cobbler by Richard Williams and Sleeping Beauty by Clyde Geronimi, Eiichi is completely unapologetic of its craftsmanship. It never hides the visual choices it makes in bold textures, brushstrokes, panelling, and colours. It utilises the creation of a universe inside the medium of animation at its highest potential.
私は恐ろしい女になりたい。誰もが顔を背けて逃げ出すような、そうでなければいけないの。私は。
Much like Tenshi no Tamago by Oshii Mamoru, where the world of animation is so well constructed and thought of that we feel as though we are watching ancient folklore of a lost civilization. The dark colour palette that seems to only take a break in the luminescent protagonist as she wanders quietly through a decrepit neo-Gothic Art Nouveau city space immersed by complete darkness. The slow pacing meditation of every frame. Every encounter in this film feels like a definitive moment, as the story is told with incredible precision. Characters are small bodies in the enormity of their surroundings. As they struggle through their faith, the film manages to create a strong sense of existential desperation through the lingering silence of its journey. A haunting masterpiece, honouring the likes of poetic surrealist masterpiece Les Jeux des Anges by Valerian Borovitch. And the world-building cutout fantasies of Ofuji Noburo. Setting informs the personalities of characters, the plausibility and the ways in which events unfold. It affects the choices characters make and our attachment to the themes and motifs of the story. If cinema's setting is built often through production design and visual schemes, animation offers a new layer of possibilities as a vividly imagined world can take shape through atmosphere and the identity of the whole visual narrative. A story is elevated by its world building. It makes the questions and quests of its characters all the more relevant. Spirited Away by Miyazaki Hayao takes world building to a virtuoso level. As Chihiro enters a new landscape, we enter it with her. There's a moment of discovery present throughout the whole story, as we feel all the time that something new is going to emerge. Akira by Otomo Katsuhiro, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed by Lotte Reiniger, Howl's Moving Castle by Miyazaki Hayao are films where the animation of the landscape and the surrounding is as important as the action occurring within the confinements of the main character's space. There's a whole world occurring as our characters exist, with culture, costumes, culinary, and customs. It's almost tactile, for it's alive. The beauty of that is that it creates a whole new layer to which the story unfolds. There's understanding and recognition of what's similar between our world and the animated world, but there's also wonder in uncovering the new realities we're presented with. The Japanese Masters anthology Robot Carnival, Wes Anderson's Fantastic Mr. Fox, his fictionalised take on Japanese culture in Isle of Dogs, are other profoundly well-developed worlds where every idiosyncrasy of its settings becomes relevant to our understanding of the storyline. But if animation can help us redeem the pains of the human condition through the creation of alternative realities, it can also be a celebration of joy, a childlike, wondrous universe of ludic and delight. A celebration of life itself. Disney's Fantasia is a film that requires no presentation. It's a tour de force of music, animation and storytelling. Released in 1940, it's Disney's boldest production to date. Walt Disney had imagined Fantasia to be an ongoing project, where a new edition will be released every few years, substituting original segments for new ones, creating both a familiar and new experience to the audience every time. This alliance of music and animation, combined with the freedom of creation granted to its animators, were crucial for the everlasting strength of the piece. Akin to Norman McLaren's experimentations with sound and animation in Pas de Deux, where the abstraction of any grand morality is only for the sake of pure attention to the movement, the sound, the gestures. One that reminds us why the greatest art pieces of any medium or genre are not always grandiose, but always transformative. For a picture is a poem without words, an animation is a dance with our senses. In The Nightmare Before Christmas by Henry Selick and Tim Burton, music is indispensable to the way the story is structured. Entire segments are advanced by the device of song. Characters tell us about their inner turmoils through musical numbers. But although music is essential to the storytelling, here the movement never feels attached to the beat. It's never restricted by it, but merely a method to get us closer. But there's a unique nostalgic delight in remembering the song or a line a character utters. Animation plays with nostalgia all the time, for it draws from the observation of life. Pixar's WALL-E tells a story of the future, of a waste machine in a trash-filled Earth on a journey to save mankind of its own faith. But it's so relevant, for it builds from our experiences, our recollections of existence itself. Music here is a tool used for storytelling, but not the driving force, as silence is the key ingredient of this story. That's the power of animation, the understanding that we're creating feelings as we animate movements. Motion is its medium, and animation is the art of endless styles and possibilities of potential itself. It doesn't have to imitate reality, but it can evoke life. So why should we allow our imagination to go sterile? Imagination can be stronger than knowledge. It's the potent force that moved history forward. So let dreams and myths triumph over facts, love over death, laughter over pain, experience over dialectics, movement over inertia, even if just for a moment. For maybe you'll find the child lost within yourself, ready to create magical universes and move mountains. We'd like to thank Mubi for sponsoring this video. Mubi is a curated streaming service, an ever-changing collection of handpicked films from new directors to award winners from everywhere on earth. Beautiful, interesting, incredible movies, and a new one every single day, and always carefully chosen by Mubi curators. You can stream or download all of Mubi's movies anytime, on any screen, any device, anywhere, and you'll never see a single ad on Mubi. Mubi adds a new film to its ever-growing catalogue every single day, and you can find out the newest edition on Mubi's Film of the Day. Right now on Mubi UK, you can watch Fantastic Planet by Rene Laloux, and on Mubi US, you can watch Mamoru Oshii's masterpiece Ghost in the Shell. Just some of the many animations we mentioned, and more, you can find exclusively on Mubi. You can try Mubi for free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinemacartography for a whole month of great cinema for free.